Question 1 states that in this article, Joanne is credited as saying that the price rise would not stop her from smoking. For Joanne, cigarettes are, and we are given 3 options: A, a necessity, B, a luxury, and C, an inferior good. Okay, so let's take a look at our options. We'll be doing this by defining each of the options. So, what is a necessity good? Necessity goods are goods that are essential to individuals and the economy. Necessity goods tend to be inelastic, meaning a change in price will not affect the demand as heavily due to consumers needing the good. What is a luxury good? Luxury goods are products that are not essential but are highly desired by people in the economy. What is an inferior good? An inferior good states that as income increases, demand for the good will decrease, proving an inverse relationship. So, what's the answer? The answer is A, necessity good. But why is that? Let's have a look. So, it is not a luxury good because it is not a luxury good as a luxury good is highly desired by individuals in the economy, but is not necessary. A luxury good is bought when individuals' income increase. In this case, Joanne's income has not increased. In addition, Joanne describes cigarettes to be an essential part of her life, where the price does not affect her demand, thus highlighting it as a necessity good rather than a luxury. So it's not an inferior good as well, and this is because since an inferior good relates to a price increase, in her case her income did not increase, and her demand did not decrease, thus not highlighting an inferior good. So finally, it is a necessity good, and this is because in the case for Joanne, cigarettes are a necessity good as she describes the price will not stop her from smoking. Her powerful language from the extract states that a change in price will not impact her demand and states that she will continue to buy more cigarettes in the future. The supply and demand curve on the screen represents this scenario. The graph shows that even with an upward change in price, the demand for cigarettes remains the same. This means that the demand is perfectly inelastic, which is normal for necessity goods.
In the article, Yeltsin is quoted as stating, "I am an addict, so I would keep on smoking, but not that much anymore." If the majority of smokers represent Yeltsin's view, what do you expect the market for cigarettes to look like, with the tobacco excise being imposed? Note that the green area represents the tax burden on consumers and the red area represents the tax burden on sellers. Graph A shows that the demand curve is a vertical line indicating that there is perfect inelasticity, no change in demand with price changes. Therefore, Graph A is incorrect because Yeltsin indicated that he would continue to smoke, but not that much. Therefore, a vertical line does not represent this elasticity of demand. Graph B is a typical supply and demand graph. This graph also does not represent Yeltsin's scenario, because by saying that he would continue to smoke, but not that much anymore, he is indicating his demand would decrease, but not decrease exactly in proportion to the price change generated by the excise. This kind of change in demand would indicate unit elasticity, which is seen in the graph, because with a change in price there is a corresponding or equal change in demand. This graph also implies that the tax burden is shared equally between the smoker and the supplier, because the red and green shaded areas each appear to be the same size, so as previously stated, his demand would not decrease, then the burden would not be shared equally as he is prepared to take a greater burden of the excise. In Graph C, the demand curve is very elastic and does not support Yeltsin's statement. This graph indicates that a slight increase in price would greatly decrease smokers' demand for cigarettes. This elasticity is usual for luxury goods. When there is a price rise, consumer demand will decrease. Graph D is the correct answer. Graph D's demand curve shows very to quite inelastic demand, which satisfies Yeltsin's statement. If the price increases, the quantity demanded is decreased by a marginal amount, which is not in perfect proportion to the price change. From the graph, because the green shaded area is larger, the tax burden would indeed fall on the consumer who is willing to continue buying the good, albeit at an increased price. Question 3. Comment on the following statement. Holding all other factors constant, if smokers were more sensitive to the increase in tobacco excise, the deadweight loss would be smaller. If smokers were more sensitive to the increase in tobacco excise, we would expect the demand curve to be elastic. For the deadweight loss to be smaller, we would expect demand to be inelastic. This can be seen in the graph, where demand being very inelastic results in a smaller deadweight loss compared to the deadweight loss resulting from an elastic demand. This can be seen in the shaded areas on the two graphs. The deadweight loss is a loss of economic efficiency that can occur when the free market equilibrium is not achieved. So, this statement is not true because, as previously stated, if smokers were more sensitive to the increase in tobacco excise, while all other factors were held constant, the demand curve would have a higher elasticity and the deadweight loss would be greater, not smaller. We can therefore see from the graphs that the deadweight loss is the greatest when elasticity of demand is high. It depends does not apply here because all other factors are constant and we are only examining the sensitivity of smokers when the price of cigarettes increases, therefore it is not dependent on anything but elasticity. Passing the final question back to you, Aram.
So, question 4 is a discussion. It states when someone chooses to smoke, they understand that they have an increased chance of lung cancer. That is, the private costs to the individuals are already accounted for, and therefore the government should not bother wasting taxpayers' money on scare campaigns to deter smokers. Do you agree or disagree? Personally, I disagree, and let's have a look on why. So, it is clear that Australia has tried to decrease the use of cigarettes in the economy, such as the government policy of displaying graphical images of the effects of smoking on cigarette packets as seen here. It is clear that Australia must continue to address the issue of smoking as the number of deaths from lung cancer increased dramatically by each year. According to www.cancer.org, 8,410 Australians died from lung cancer in 2016. Furthermore, in 2017, 47,753 Australians died from lung cancer. This growing rate is alarming and further expresses the need for these scare campaigns. Despite the alarming rate of increased lung cancer deaths, these campaigns have had a positive impact onto cigarette sales, as they decreased. According to CDC.gov, 258 billion cigarette units were sold in 2016, whereas in 2017 only 249 billion units were sold, thus showing a 3.5% decrease. According to www.news.com.au, the price of cigarettes increased by 13%, as in 2016 it only costed 62 cents per stick, whereas in 2017 it costed 70 cents per stick. The impact of less smoking includes less pollution. If smoking decreases, there will be less pollution and littering, which will result in greater environmental sustainability. This is because the smoke releases toxic air pollutants into the atmosphere. The government has done this through no smoking signs in public. Better funds for research. According to Lung Cancer Australia, $1 million was donated in 2017 to fund research about lung cancer. This money could be used otherwise to treat other diseases and other cancers that affect everyday Australians.